Yo, what's up, guys? My name is Hayes alongside Harrison Simeon, and we are back for episode 19. We're actually splitting up into two parts, so this is part one. And yeah, I don't know, talking some men's hoops. The season wrapped up in the round of 32 against Marquette. I mean, now, over a week ago by the time we're recording this. But yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, they made a run that many didn't really expect. I mean, there was some awesome coverage of the Pac-12 tournament that we talked about just before we went to break. Weren't able to really cover those March Madness games as much as we would have wanted to, just because of, being in Ohio and Indiana is not super ideal.
Yeah.
But regardless, really fun. Had some, arguably the greatest moment in recent history considering the stakes for the men's basketball program with KJ Simpson's shot against Florida. But now, the season ended. Really tough loss against the elite team in Marquette that, maybe you could have wished you saw was winnable. There's some, open shots that were missed, a lot from three. But still, a season to be proud of considering, many people's thoughts about halfway through. But now, I mean, for next year, I guess we'll get to that later, but for next year, plenty of people hitting the portal or, just leaving in general for the NBA. And yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what the future holds for this team after such a I don't know, uplifting ending.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely a lot to unpack, as you said, but I mean, going into kind of that little March Madness run, it felt a little longer just because that first four matchup. So, playing 3 games despite, losing in the round of 32. I think really the toughest thing was just that it felt like this team had finally hit their stride a little bit, but even still, seeing Cody Williams coming off the bench and not seeing his production in the same way, whether that was, still not being 100% due to injury, finding a comfortableness, Tad Boyle not wanting to, mess up, I don't know, a kind of a flow he had with Williams being out of the lineup for the final 4 games of the season. So, I mean, not having that was still a little frustrating. Not having Julian Hammond, who was, who we saw kind of flourish at the end of his sophomore year, and, stepped up like this year, hitting some big shots, but still, dealing with injuries. So, yeah, I don't know. It was just, still just kind of a odd feeling that I feel like it's kind of stuck around the whole season of, like, very, very proud, but just, I don't know. Yeah, just one step away.
Yeah. And you wish you could have seen more, I think, is the biggest thing because of how in and out of the lineup so many key players were. You wish you could have seen that unit together more because when they were all together, they made, the round of 32 and took one of the best teams in the country at that point to the last second. Mm-hmm. So it was really tough to see, but also because of how people were feeling about the road struggles and how much of a downer many people had on the team heading into the tournament. I mean, considering everything, I mean, there's a ton to be proud of.
Yeah, definitely.
The program record for wins, too.
Yeah, because, there was a program record, and, I mean, looking at the Pac-12 tournament, it kind of set up in Colorado's favor as far as their matchups, but, I mean, still, pushing to for an appearance in the championship game, even though it ended in disappointing fashion. Yeah. I mean, still something to be proud of. And you look at, how they wrapped up the season, and I'd have to look exactly what it was, to end. But I think it was 12
of the last 14?
12 of their last 14, I think it was, that they
really
won.
Good.
And yeah, I mean, in March Madness, I mean, all 3 of those games are close, even against Boise. But I mean, Colorado was there to play. I mean, there were still some issues that were prevalent as far as turnovers. Especially against Florida and Marquette. You saw the defense that was so prevalent in the Pac-12 tournament almost completely go away.
Yeah.
And I mean, the game against Florida was the first game where both teams hit triple digits in 19 years in March Madness. So
yeah, there's a lot of history that kind of followed because of the kind of the opposite that we saw in the first 4 games against Boise State.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure last pod was before that game.
Yeah, I think it was I think we filmed
because we previewed
the
it
day of.
Yeah,
I think it was. So yeah, but no, I mean, yeah, just kind of I mean, as far as a basketball fan, I mean, those were 3 games that you could kind of, I mean, they were all you could ask for. I mean, obviously the first 2, ending Colorado wins. That's what you want as a student and someone who covers the team. You want the season to keep going, but I mean, yeah, all 3 games of March Madness were all fun. They were interesting. They went down to the wire, especially that Florida game. Ending with KJ's game-winning shot. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think of like where to go from here, like what exactly to discuss. I mean, one thing I think we should bring up is the fact that after Florida, their head coach brought up the fact that Colorado was a very good 10 seed, and he was kind of surprised by that. Shaka Smart, the first thing he said in his opening statement, after beating Colorado in the round of 32, was that Colorado was the best 10 seed that he that he's ever seen.
Yeah.
Because looking at the Ken Palm and looking at the net rankings and stuff, I mean, Colorado, despite all the struggles that they dealt with this year, we're still, compared to at least the other 10 seeds, we're far better. I mean, it's interesting looking at some of the Washington State, for example, who was a 7 seed in this tournament, and even though they made the round of 32 as well, they were, I don't know, across the board they were ranked lower below Colorado. And so I don't know, I'm kind of wondering what you think about just the whole Selection Sunday process. We kind of talked about a little bit about it before the Boise State game, but just kind of just this crazy year of college hoops.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of saw maybe the selection committee eventually be proven right because of we kind of talked about how the Mountain West teams got underseeded.
Yeah.
And they all went out in the round of 32 or sooner. Or was it besides San Diego State, I'm pretty sure, made it to Sweet 16. But
yeah, they did, because they played UConn.
For us, I mean, you saw, I think all that praise came from that, closing stretch of the season where we finally kind of hit our stride. I think, to correct you from earlier, you said it was 12-14, I think it was 10-12. So
yeah,
still an amazing finish that saw us beat, some teams that have, we saw. I see Utah now was in the semifinal of the NIT. They're a team that is really strong, and yet we beat them twice, both by double digits, in that final stretch. So, and then the Washington State game, you really saw them gut out and play better late in games than you had prior, and you saw that again with Boise State and Florida. So, I mean, Florida actually, I don't know. But we still were able to get the win. Regardless of how they were, I remember watching, was it Clayton Jr.?
Yeah.
Absolutely torch us, and he hit that crazy 3 to tie it. That is now going to be completely forgotten because of KJ's shot.
Yeah. No, it's honestly kind of unfortunate for him because I forget exactly
he hit 33.
How many points he had in that final stretch, but I think he scored 6. I think he scored 18 of Florida's final 21 points in that stretch, and we can talk about that game, more in specifics, but yeah, kind of like you said, more that you touched on, the late game struggles that Colorado had, because we've talked about all year about how outside of the 2 losses to Arizona, all these games were within a possession the last, sometimes in the last possession, whether it was UCLA or Cal or ASU. But I mean, I don't know, even in loss to Washington State on the road, lost to Utah on the road, those games are still, one possession ball games in the final, minute and a half, 2 minutes, and were definitely winnable. And then, as we saw in the Florida game, Colorado had a pretty resounding lead, with 5 minutes to play. And granted, Walter Clayton Jr., he stepped up, hit big shots, got to the line, did his thing. But it was a little confusing seeing Colorado just all of a sudden, slam on the brakes and try and stall the rest of the game and then have KJ play hero, which made for a great shot, a great moment, but just kind of I don't know. I feel like that was kind of the biggest thing that you could harp on about Tad Boyle and his coaching this year. and maybe just this team in general, and then looking like a little bit further into, just their turnover issues, and then kind of their defensive woes, despite, at least in my eyes, I really expected this team to be a fantastic defensive team.
Yeah, that's what we were worried about the offense, and that was what was the stronger unit.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it was just odd because, it was definitely, you look at this roster that, they're lengthy, they're tall, they're athletic. But really, I think like the biggest thing, that, we keep coming back to, and we mentioned earlier, is just the injuries. It felt like, they just didn't have enough time to play together, and I think that partially contributed to some of their late game issues. But when you look at turnovers, you look at defense, and those are a lot of communication things. Playing as a unit, when you don't have those moments, or not even those moments, but just like the experience and the time. Even though this team really seemed to have great chemistry, it there was just one too many things off, because even in, looking at that, in that Marquette game, the offense took so long to get going. That second half looked completely different than the first half.
Yeah, if they didn't get going, maybe 2 minutes before, or like at the moment they did, Marquette couldn't miss. So that game could have been over before it even really started.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because, that second half was, I forget exactly what the run was, but, Colorado went on a huge run to begin that second half, and all of a sudden make it a ball game, and then, it was Marquette kind of just made a play or two to kind of extend it. And not even just Marquette, just pretty much just Tyler Kolek.
Yeah, Kolek, and in the first half it was Jones.
Yeah, he couldn't miss, along with the the rest of the Golden Eagles, but him specifically. But Kolek through and through. Jones dealt with foul trouble, but I forget exactly what Kolek finished with, but
21.
But yeah, 21.
He played all 40 minutes too.
I think he had 8 assists. Was it
11
assists? I think. Yeah. So he was just there to make a play whenever Colorado didn't really have an option or have an answer for him, which is kind of the frustrating thing. But yeah, even then, like you look at Marquette shot almost 62% from the field, and Colorado only lost by 4. It's really like the difference of hitting 1 or 2 more open looks that they had.
Yeah.
Could have been the difference between, the first Sweet 16 berth since, I think it was 1969, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, just a lot of, I don't know. It's just, obviously a loss of words. I feel like, whenever I've been writing articles and, especially talking about this team, it's kind of been, proud that, they got to where they got to, overcame some of the things that they had to overcome, but still just feeling like they could have done more. They had the chances.
Yeah.
But also some of it injuries. That's not necessarily their fault. And like going back to the 10 seed thing, if this team isn't injured and they see like a lot of the and they were able to see like their team play together throughout the whole year. Because especially looking at Boise State and Florida. Granted, Florida lost their starting center in the SEC championship game. And then looking at Marquette, all 3 of those teams, didn't really deal with injuries too much. They had their fair share here and there, but they had their team playing, their starting lineups playing for 30 of their 33 like regular season games, or whatever it was, or 28 of their 30 regular season games, not including like the conference championship or tournaments. And so I don't know, just wondering if Colorado actually had the chance to play instead of being that 10 seed, even though there was a potential for them to be higher, granted what they did this season, if they were to play healthy, maybe win even just 2 more games, how much of a difference does that make? Because even though I thought Marquette was a good matchup for Colorado with the height difference, even though Marquette being a good team, I thought the matchup kind of favored Colorado, and that Marquette needed to play as well as they did and shoot the ball as well as they did to beat them. And then going even more hypothetical, then it's a matchup with NC State. And granted, NC State Final Four team now, but much rather, play an 11 seed. So
I would have also much rather seen Eddie Lampkin versus DJ Burns.
Definitely. That would have been tons of fun. But I don't know. Kind of all over the place.
No, it's okay. I was going to mention, you kind of wish you saw more, because once you get to that point, you don't know when you're going to get there again.
Mm-hmm.
And with the team that, we see are now headed to the NBA, from 3 of their best players headed to the NBA, 3 more are either graduating, heading to the portal. You kind of saw this as their shot once they got there, regardless of how they got there, because it was such a struggle throughout most of the season on the road, playing, the blown lead against Cal, and, the UCLA game, you saw them definitely be in at the moment. The Arizona State game on the road, you saw them be in until the last second. And it was really just, you wish you could have seen them go far because of the talent and because of, their window wasn't really that big. And, this was the window. This was going to be the year that we were going to make a run. And you started to see it, and then you just saw the defense collapse twice, and maybe Florida figured out some things that helped Marquette get so many crazy open looks, and that they made nearly all of in the first half.
Yeah.
But I think overall, you can't hang your heads about it, because you're going to look back on this year as one of the most memorable seasons in the program's history. And nobody at this point is going to remember, we sucked on the road, we, lost to Florida State, or we, had that loss by Arizona by a combined 70 points. At this point, nobody's really going to remember that. People are going to remember the KJ shot. People are going to remember that as the season of Cody Williams. And people are going to remember it as the most wins in the program's history. Mm-hmm. So, overall, very happy with where they ended up. Though going forward, it's going to be a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, definitely. Because I guess, using that to segue into, guys moving on, Cody and KJ have yet to officially declare for the draft, but it really seems.
Did Tristan?
Really, I don't think.
Hey, regardless, he's graduating.
Yeah, he's graduating. So even though I don't think he's made an official declaration. All 3 of those guys expected to go to the league. Then Eddie hit the transfer portal and then quickly committed to Syracuse. And then Javon Hadley and Luke O'Brien, both in the transfer portal, looking to find new homes. And Joe Hurlburt as well. He didn't play.
We talked about him, but more than he probably more. We had more podcast episodes where we mentioned his name than maybe games he played all year.
Yeah, no, I think so, because
he played in 10 actually, so maybe not. But
yeah, we'd have to see. But I kind of thought he would step up a little earlier in the year with Eddie deal with back surgery.
And especially with the lack of, we never had a backup center, and you thought, when in certain situations against different matchups of center, like in the Pac-12 championship against. I'm
Nafali
Dante. Yes. Against Dante, when you saw just Eddie getting completely outmatched, you thought, you need that backup center. Mm-hmm. And they went with Dak, who's more of can play multiple positions instead of Hurlburt. But, maybe you wish you could have gotten more out of the number 1 player in North Dakota.
Yeah, Hurlburt was definitely a wild card heading into this year. I felt like a lot of the red shirt freshmen
we'll bleep it out.
But a lot of the redshirt freshmen, didn't really know what to expect. And then R.J. Smith, having his brief stint before, seeing his season end.
Yeah, but you still see him as part of the future very much, especially if I don't know if he ended up getting that medical waiver or the medical red shirt. He gets the extra year.
I'd have to look. But with Joe, like we said, there wasn't really a definitive, backup center for the beginning of the year, and at that point, by the Pac-12 championship, he just didn't play enough.
Right.
We I don't know, barely saw him, in any of the non-conference games. If I'm not mistaken, the most we saw him was, I think, Washington State, the first game at home. he had played some minutes just because of I don't know. Tad
Eddie
said it was up to personnel, and yeah, Eddie was in foul trouble a little bit, and Washington State likes to, I don't know. They tried to go big with, Oscar Clough, who had come off the bench a fair amount this year, but against Colorado, I think in all 3 games he started, and then Isaac Jones being as good as he was this year, it was, I don't know. We saw a little bit of Joe then, but yeah, just really nothing from him. So we'll have to see where he ends up. But as far as the other guys, it's not really unexpected to see, the 3 that hit the portal.
Luke, I thought was just going to graduate, but not surprised that he wants to play some more basketball because you see the tools in him to make him a potential player for either the G League or, somewhere else.
Yeah.
So not surprised he wants to keep hooping.
Yeah, definitely, if I was in their position, seeing, the academic success that, someone like Jalen Sherrod has, I know, going to women's instead of men's, but if I could have a free 5th year to, go to graduate school and, get my master's and things like that, I'd take it too, especially if I can, I could also play basketball. Because, I don't think, I'm sure Luke could could carve out a career overseas or something. I personally don't think he, necessarily has the tools to be an NBA player. I just don't think he has the athleticism or the, that consistent with his shot quite yet to really kind of, get himself into that realm. But yeah, no, interesting to, just see a guy who, Colorado kid and played 4 years and, really kind of embodied, Buff culture and kind of Tad Boyle culture, in his time here, and then just knowing he'll be somewhere else next year.
I wanted to break some news. I know it's not entirely breaking because it's from 3 hours ago, but Colorado has officially their first basketball Hall of Famer.
That is true.
Chauncey Billups was elected today.
So yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, you can keep going. Sorry.
No, that was fine. Because I know that's something I kind of wanted to bring up too, just because. I guess we'll get to KJ in a sec. So yeah, I guess we'll get there in a sec. But yeah, no. Going with the transfers, it's weird seeing that Javon Hadley. I thought he really, stepped up this year.
Yeah.
Was a all around kind of a glue guy, and he played the second most amount of minutes on the team, and dealt with his season-ending injury last year as a junior, and then facial fracture and just kind of random, nothing that was really serious enough to take him out for a game or two at a time, but just seeing him kind of get banged up throughout the year and still being able to produce at the level that he did, even though his offense sometimes it was non-existent, but he was the 5th scoring option on the court a lot of times. So it would be weird seeing him play somewhere else, but I think he'll make big contributions elsewhere. Looking at Eddie, it was weird only seeing 1 year out of him, especially with how much love that he got from Boulder and the Colorado faithful, and just I don't know if you saw it, but I saw somewhere on Twitter that he was on Instagram Live and talking about how apparently Boulder didn't want him back.
I saw that he maybe was said on Twitter, he came out with a statement after that saying oh, that wasn't really what he meant. It was more, I think for him, it was more about the money, because then he said he was going to be somewhere closer to home, and then he ended up at Syracuse, which is not even remotely close. But with Eddie, I wasn't entirely surprised that he's leaving, considering, I don't know, the state of the team. And, I don't know if he figures to be a number 1 or 2 option on a team next year. But, we saw a lot out of him, especially at the end. And he was arguably the X factor of us making it through those pro season tournaments. With Hadley, you saw a lot of the tools that make a really good college basketball player really come out, because you saw that 3-point shot open up. You saw the toughness And now you're kind of seeing it pay off. He's getting, Zoom calls or like visits from Iowa State and Michigan State is what I saw. So those are two premier, one of them being a blue blood program that could really use a player like him. And, that's honestly cool to see that his past year of work has got him, all the way up to a program at that level. And with Eddie, I don't really know what to make of it overall. It sucks to see him go, but at times he was a frustrating player to watch, and I don't know if he was ever really going to be part of our future. I thought he was graduating after this year, but still. Then Luke, I also was expecting to see him go, but for the team in general, I can't even make of a starting lineup that wouldn't involve someone we eventually get in the portal, because right now it would be Hammond, RJ,
Jizope,
Dak, and
I don't even
Harrison Carrington, Greg Gerhardt.
But yeah, no, it just going back to Eddie a little bit. All those transfer decisions make sense. Going back to, the top three guys of Cody and KJ and Tristan all, expecting to enter the draft. You look at, if you tuned in to what Eddie said about, why he came here. There were, some other reasons, but he's, continuously highlighted his relationship with KJ. And how they played together, and you definitely saw that on the floor a little bit with Eddie's passing ability and whatnot. Seeing them, I feel like almost on a gamely basis, kind of, finding a backdoor cut or a handoff or something like that. Whether it was Eddie to KJ or KJ to Eddie. So I feel like that kind of makes sense. With the chemistry that we talked about earlier, of Luke and Tristan had spent the last 4 years here. So with Tristan moving on, like we said, we expected Luke to move on as well. But I feel like it'd be hard for Luke to stay around when, all the guys that he'd kind of, grown up with here, are all moving on. And then just, looking at Javon, kind of a similar thing. But, just, going to practices and whatnot, you could see the connection that he had with, even just Eddie, who, this was their first year playing together. And so, I don't know. I think just, between chemistry and other guys moving on, that's why, these guys are, why those three all hit the transfer portal. But then also just I don't know, looking at someone like Eddie or Javon, you kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit. Granted, they'd have opportunity next year, but, the Buffs are not going to be good not going to be good next year.
Yeah, you're in a better conference by a lot, especially compared to this year's Pac-12. You're going to be building a Coach Prime-esque Frankenstein monster of a team, at least for most of it. I would imagine the only guaranteed starters for next year that I would pencil in, maybe I don't even know 100%, but Hammond and Dak, that's the only one I can see definitely showed enough in their time with the team that, and Hammond is the only one that was with the team 2 years ago, so now it's a completely different, it's all just freshmen from last year, red shirts, and guys we get in the portal. We could see Sebastian Rankic and Andrew Crawford getting minutes this year. I would not be stunned just because of, they were highly touted recruits for the most part.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's going to be a new era.
Yeah, no,
and we'll get to the next. It's a new era for both basketball teams. We'll get to the women tomorrow, but really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see who we get this offseason in the portal. Because, what do you think is our biggest need?
Honestly, I don't know, because the team was obviously going to go through a big transformation, because as much as you want to see Cody, TDS, and KJ all return, somehow make another push, that's just not that hasn't really been the nature of college basketball in recent history, but especially not now. And so, it'd feel like a disservice to them if, they were to return.
Yeah.
Especially with this year's draft class and whatnot. So, I mean, it makes sense why, Eddie and Javon and those guys all hit the transfer portal. But yeah, no, I mean, it'll be odd because, I mean, I feel like Hammond's really the only one that I mean has kind of, solidified himself as a college player because, even though we saw, the improvement of Dak down the stretch of the season, kind of finding a fair kind of backup role as a center. I mean, never really seeing anything more than like 12 or 13 minutes, like at most.
Yeah, he's one of the best highlight reels in the teams, though, I would bet.
But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, his highlight reel is insane, so that's definitely really exciting. But I mean, you look at him and he still, has a fair amount of the question marks that were there at the beginning of the season, as far as, his weight at his height. I mean, because, he made a few decent plays, like against N'Faly Dante in the Pac-12. And granted, there's not a lot of people that have, answers for N'Faly Dante. That's just, a specimen of a human being. But,
yeah.
But I don't know. Obviously, there's still some room for Dak to make some strides. And so, even seeing him as, really kind of being like the second guy, being like, all right, yeah, that's, for sure someone who's going to play, and still just having as many question marks around him is, a little worrying. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of in Colorado's best interest for, Eddie and Javon to have moved on, because at least now these guys will be thrown into the fire, and it'll be a tough year because, like you said, and a lot better of a conference in the Big 12. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's what you'd want to see. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, yeah, Jazzopa's starting, and I mean, you want to put the best team out there that you can. But I mean, even if some true freshmen were starting, yeah, like Ranchik. I don't know if it's Ranchik or Rankich. I don't know. I haven't heard it enough times to.
I've said Rankik too, but I feel like there's a C and not a K, so maybe Ranchik.
Either way, him or Andrew Crawford. I mean, like, yeah, as we mentioned, I mean, I think in a year like next year where it's kind of like a rebuild year, and it might be for the next, 2 or 3. Like, I'd want, it would be nice to see these guys, just taking everything head on, and it'll definitely be hard to watch at first, but I think there would definitely be a lot of flashes, and it would be, I think, really the biggest kind of question mark about next year is just the transfer portal. Not only because there's so many, guys in the portal, and the climate of the portal is changing, so often nowadays, but also because Tad has consistently, talked about how much he doesn't like to go into the portal because he wants his own homegrown guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it'll be, it'll definitely be odd. I mean, I've seen like the list of guys that that Colorado has supposedly reached out to, and there's some big names on there. But yeah, I don't know, just a lot of question marks, and I keep saying that, and it goes right along with my favorite word of interesting and just all this.
It'll be fun to keep up with.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough to keep up with because of how up and down it is, and how fast things are already moving now that the season's over. But I guess to use a different word, I'm fascinated with where it'll go, because I can't imagine them being in the cellar next year, but with how good that conference is going to become now, with Arizona coming with you. You got Houston there, you got Kansas there, you got so many elite programs. There are probably more that we're going to have to face. But it's going to be a pain. Iowa State, like we could end up facing Hadley if he ends up going to Iowa State.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know, ended up seeing Hadley or
Texas,
or even Luke
O'Brien.
O'Brien.
Texas is leaving. Never mind.
But
conference realignment has some. Oh, Baylor too, Texas Tech, BYU is in the tourney.
Yeah, I
Oklahoma was a bubble team. Like, it's gonna be insane.
Yeah, no, it'll definitely be. yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel bad because, we're supposed to be the ones, talking about everything and, presenting the information. But, I mean, there's just, so many unknowns at the moment of just, I mean, just even, even if you just were somehow able to take this year's team and, put it in and, shift them up into next year. I mean, just, dealing with the conference realignment, in this drastic of a fashion was always going to be tough.
Yeah, I feel like with the conference realignment, it was so football centric that they accidentally made one of the greatest basketball conferences ever. And, at least for regular seasons, it'll be, I know a lot of people have always, and, things seem to be always with the ACC and when it comes down to the tournament, the ACC and the Big East. But next year's regular season is going to be a gauntlet no matter who we play. I mean, the schedule won't come out for a while, but it's going to be, playing some of the best teams in the nation every year from this point on. And it's going to be a rough opener because of where we're at. I mean, it's the top 6 guys in the rotation, or
top 6
arguably
guys.
No, it'll be 6.
Yeah,
because the 7th would have been Dak, huh?
Yeah,
without Hammond.
Yeah, because I mean, that top 7, included Hammond in there, but I mean, especially this year with the injury issues that Hammond dealt with. Definitely it was. I don't know. He kind of fell out of that, and Luke really kind of solidified that 6th spot in the top 6. So I mean, seeing them all move on, it's tough as seeing guys that brought success to this team, but also that felt could have done more. There's you said, that window that felt like was just missed, even though there was so much success. I mean, record-breaking success, as we've mentioned. The winningest season in Colorado men's basketball history. So I don't know. I mean, I think really the biggest thing just heading forward is making sure that. I mean, I want to envision the young guys that Colorado has now, testing their luck in the transfer portal. But I mean, like Dak was going to go for a prep year in Kansas before Colorado extended him an offer, in the offseason before this year that he took, and then surprisingly he didn't redshirt and made some decent noise regarding his name down the stretch of the season, and with the potential he has, the highlight reel that we've mentioned, sure, he needs to put on some more weight, but his frame is combined with his athleticism and his 3-point shots that he took this year weren't always the prettiest, but
no.
Watching him during practice and seeing his handles a little bit and watching some of his or high school tapes, I mean, there's a lot of potential there, and I think there's a lot of potential in Jope and a lot of the freshmen coming in. So I don't know, I think the biggest thing about next year is not only giving these guys a chance, but almost maybe hoping that maybe they're not too good. I don't know how to even think about it, just because what are the odds that they put together a great season and all of a sudden it's transfer portal time and they're heading out of here. So I don't know. It's I don't know. I kind of need to shut up because I just keep saying I don't know.
No. I mean, there's not a ton to really mention left with the team, at least at this point. But you could picture some more shifting around, and when we eventually get a decent amount of those transfers, we can talk about them. Same with the recruits. We can just preview and maybe do a little more research on Ranchich or Crawford.
Yeah, at least figure out how to say his name.
No Onwuchekwa, though. That's still a bummer, considering we have no center on the roster, which will obviously be a position that is most likely addressed in the portal. I don't know what to.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of just men's hoops, that's about all we got left. I don't know if you had more to add.
Yeah, I mean, not really much more because, I mean, we kind of briefly talked about what are their needs in the portal, and you said center, but I mean honestly kind of just the forward position in general.
Yeah.
Because there's Jazope, but I mean after that, I mean
there's no depth.
It was Harrison Carrington that was coming off to fill that forward position.
And at forward, he's a bit of a stretch. He's a guard forward, I would imagine.
Yeah, he's a little undersized. The athleticism in there, and I mean, that kind of makes sense with, a redshirt walk-on. So yeah, I mean, it'll be kind of funny because next year there's going to be a little bit more guard depth, and as we mentioned, Hammond was really kind of the only solidified guy because, someone you haven't even brought up yet was Javon Ruffin.
Oh, yeah.
And so, he had a decent freshman year.
He'll be in the rotation.
And, he'll be in the rotation, and it was, great to see him come back this year. But even, this year left, uncertainties as far as, what type of player will Ruffin be because, he didn't see, the same amount of opportunity. Granted, it was a great team, as we said, and they, were trying to make a push, and, he was still dealing with injuries. But you also see, in that limited time he had, sure, he had some big shots, here and there, in the Pac-12 tournament against Oregon late in the season. But, I mean, his three-point percentage, I think it was in the high 20s when last year, as a freshman, on more attempts, it was in the, mid to high 30s.
Right.
And so, I mean, there's just, it would just be odd because, I mean, we saw some decent stretches from R.J. Smith, but still it was his first collegiate action as far as actual play, and then, another season of just sitting out. And it's I don't know, just really odd because, there's more depth at the guard position, but a lot of question marks. I don't know, just super odd, a really weird time in Colorado basketball. I feel like it kind of just goes in line with, the type of season that this season unfolded to be, I don't know. Even though it'll be, kind of a rebuilding year, I think it'll be fun next year, seeing new faces and kind of seeing really kind of an era of Colorado basketball, a leaf kind of being turned over because even though, Cody and Eddie was, their only years with the team, and Javon only spent 2 years and things like that, I mean, KJ was here 3 years. Tristan and, Luke were here 4 years, and so, I think really the weirdest one, not not seeing Tristan, having him kind of been the guys.
Definitely.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's it for me.
That's about it if we're gonna stick with that. And then tomorrow we'll be back for part 2. We'll talk about the women's team, and then next week we'll get to some of the football news. I know there's a lot that's been happening, not huge stuff, but
nothing too crazy, but still stuff.
I'm still wondering whether or not to refund my Lil Wayne ticket, but we'll see. It'll be a fun off season, and we got the spring game coming up with that too. So
so I don't know. Hopefully, tomorrow, the women's team they're still in the, a little bit of a pickle as far as what next season will look like. But I feel like a little more certainty.
There's a little more optimism, and you have 2 players. I mean, I don't know if I want to spoil it yet. So
we'll get into it, but I think tomorrow will look a little bit better than what today was. Even though I thought it was a good breakdown of this season, what potentially next season will look like, and so I'm Oliver Hayes.
I'm Harrison Simeon,
and as always, you heard it here first. Peace.